Hey guys, and welcome to Just a Chat With. I'm your host, Andrew Dobie. In our previous episode, we sat down with Ash Jones, the founder of personal branding agency Great Influence. Ash has helped to build some of the UK's biggest CEOs and founders into industry-leading influential figures. We had a great time with Ash, and he talks all about Stephen Bartlett and his story and how he helped grow his personal brand amongst loads of other great stories. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. Before now, we've had people on the show like co-founder and director of Deadfellas, Betty NFT. We've had multidisciplinary illustrator and designer Wacko Chacko, an award-winning designer director, CEO of Future, Chris Doe. In this episode, though, I sat down with Ndukwe Onuoha, highly celebrated poet and recording spoken word artist who has performed all over the world with Nigeria's best-known performers. His unique style fuses conversational delivery with traditional and modern instrumentation to deliver poetry that is accessible, relatable, and punchy. As if that wasn't enough, though, he is also an award-winning creative director for one of Nigeria's leading advertising agencies and has created memorable ads for some of the nation's top brands. We sat down in his home now in the UK, where he talks about his entrance into the creative industry, how he got started as a copywriter, what makes a great copywriter, what makes a great creative director, and at the end, he gave us one of the best explanations of brand that I have heard. So look forward to the show and enjoy. So hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Just a Chat With. I'm your host, Andrew Dobie. Today I'm delighted we're here with Ndukwe Onuoha, an advertising copywriter, creative director, and spoken word poet. Over the course of his career, Ndukwe has created memorable communications in Nigeria and West Africa for brands like AB InBev's Hero Beer, Uber, British Council, Diageo's International Premium Spirits, amongst loads of others. His work focus is crafting messages that resonate with the cultural and lived experiences of his audience. Ndukwe moved to Lagos and began his career in advertising as a copywriter at SO&U Saatchi & Saatchi in 2007. By 2015, he had moved to Seven Interactive as head of creative, later becoming the agency's pioneer creative director in 2017. And he is now creative director for Oliver MEA. Ndukwe describes himself as a copywriter by day, but a poet by design, which I love. And you can listen to his second spoken word album, Nwa Chukwu, on all popular streaming platforms. In 2020, was endorsed by the Arts Council England for his work in poetry and moved to the UK with his family in 2021. Now lives in Derby with his wife and two children who run the house and continues to work on getting African stories told on the world stage. Ndukwe, welcome so much. Delighted to have you here. How are things?
Fine, Andrew. Thank you for having me. It's a delight, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. So 2021 has been a transformational year from you. You picked a terrible time to move to the UK. How's that been for you?
Oh man, it's been quite interesting. It's we came here, like in the middle of winter, as it were, and for a long part, for a large part of 2021, we were just stuck inside. So which as you can imagine was
with two young kids. I can.
Dear Lord, man.
How old are your kids?
Oh, they're 9 and 8.
9 and 8, yes. So that's an interesting time to be locked down, isn't it?
Oh no, it is, because they're like two little wound-up toys, who are just running around, crashing into things, crashing into each other. But it was also quite amazing, in the sense that it gave us time to bond, because I don't think a lot of people, quite understand just how important it is, especially when you're working professionals and you're always just zipping out of the door. But it did give us, that opportunity. And, if there's anything I'm grateful for, through the lockdowns and all that, it was just our ability to play a lot more with kids, to try and understand them a lot more.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I echo that. I've got a 10-year-old son, as we discussed previously, and so it's just it's been so nice to get that extra time to bond, isn't it? Because you would end up looking back and having missed all of that. So it's the one nice thing that's come through this. So yeah, you're quite interested in you're a creative director, but you've got this kind of poetry side. Do you want to talk us through how you got into the creative industry? Where did your creative journey start? Have you always felt creative? I'd love to hear your story.
I think I'll probably just start with the last one. I've always felt creative. I think a lot more times than I'd care to admit. I always just have this imposter syndrome thing, like, oh my God, has everything been a fluke? But I think a lot of people say otherwise. But I found that my poetry has influenced my work in advertising and vice versa. So it's always been a mixed thing. How did I start? First, as writing poems. I grew up in a house where there were a lot of books, and so I was always just reading different things. But I think two poems sort of like stuck in my head, and it was the first one was, all right, I remember the lines clearly. To see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wildflower, that was William Blake, but that, or the auguries of innocence just sort of like I think it just sort of like opened, my mind to just the power of words, and then later I was to read, I think it's Elizabeth, I try to remember the name, when she said, some people taste many deaths, but once. I'm trying to remember the lines now, but but it was just these two poems got me, onto writing, and I started trying my hands out. I trying to write poems as well. And then fast forward to 2007, I just finished a system in Nigeria called the National Youth Service, where after university you enroll to serve in a paramilitary capacity. So you're posted to a different part of the country where you really do not know, just so that you can, it helps foster national integration. And I remember meeting a friend during National Youth Service, and, he was just talking about how he used to freelance at agencies during the holidays. I'm like, what on earth is that? But then he tells me about advertising, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I want to try this, because up until that time, I had no idea what I wanted to do with myself,
And this was 2017, yeah?
No, 2007.
Oh, 2007.
Yeah,
so
or
you
rather
are
2006, rather.
So, and how old were you then?
Oh, dear Lord. Somewhere in my 20s, I believe. Yeah, somewhere in my 20s anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2007, I then go to Lagos, and of course, of the discussion I've had with this guy, it seemed that copywriting was like the best thing, to do. So I go around to agencies, I start cold calling, and they're like, "Oh, hi, I'm a young copywriter." And of course, everyone's like, "Okay, so what have you done?" Yes, about that. Oh, look, I've written a few poems, which is quite interesting, because then poetry got me my first job in advertising.
Well, that's amazing, though, isn't it? Because that's always the hard part, and I know there's a lot of young creatives that listen to this, and a lot of them will be really inspired by that, because it's it's so hard often to get into the creative industries, and so I want to hear more of this. How did how did you use that poetry then, and what was the next step?
Well, again, like I said, I was relentless with my cold calling. I just kept calling, and I think creative director then just said, you know what, if it's going to get you off my back, come in. Write a test. So I go to the agency, I sit down, and then they say, write anything. And I wrote, a poem, and there were a few, just other standard, just check, use of grammar and all that. But I think, so she reads the poem, and we're like, oh, this is nice. We'll start you off as a copy trainee. And of course, the rest they say is history. But it's also quite interesting, because years down the line, I get to work with this amazing man called Steve Babayeko, who owns, arguably one of Nigeria's most amazing agency groups. And he's listened to, he had listened to a few of my poems, and then he goes like, you know what? I want to produce, one of your albums. So he ends up becoming the executive producer of Nwa Chukwu, which
I was watching this last night on YouTube, and it's amazing.
Thank you.
It's truly amazing. So for anyone listening, if you go off onto YouTube, what were we searching for, Ndukwe?
Ndukwe Onuoha.
What's the title of the?
There's Genesis and there's Say My Name.
Yeah. And so this guy then he produced this then for you.
So he acted as the executive producer for the entire album, which is called Nwa Chukwu. And it was just quite amazing. And again, so my journey has been one thing leading. Like we have a saying in Nigeria, if one hand washes the other, both, everyone is happy. So poetry and advertising have been sort of like two hands, each washing, the other, in the course of my journey. So based of my work, especially with Nwa Chukwu, I got endorsed by, the Art Council, England, and that's how come I'm here.
Oh, wow! Right. So it's poetry's kicked off everything in your journey then.
Yeah.
I always like this with creatives, in our agency, if we put a job up for a copywriter, for example, or a designer, you literally, as you'll know very well, you get thousands and thousands of CVs. And I think what's really special about what you've just mentioned there is I always think it's good to have a real base in something, but have a side secret superpower that kind of tops it up. So if you're a copywriter, poetry, that's that superpower that makes you the choice over someone else, isn't it? Or, if you've got 1,000 designers in front of you, could you be a designer that's also got a real interest in typography or in illustration or in motion graphics? And it separates you from that mass of people, doesn't it? And I think it's really inspiring to hear. And I always like to hear how people got into the industry. So where are you now then in terms of your role? Because I believe you're still working for the agency in Nigeria, but you're working remotely in the UK.
So I work for again another amazing agency called Oliver Agency, and but I work for the Middle East and Africa arm. Now, drill further down, I work as a creative director for Unit Nigeria, which handles the international premium spirit portfolio for Diageo. So that's, as it is, I came here, when I got into the UK, I just kept trying to get roles on this side as well, but there's always, which also quite amazes me how, a lot of people go, oh, you don't have a UK experience, but I always just believe that creativity is creativity, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
that's a really strange thing to say, isn't it? You don't have UK experience. I'm on the same planet.
So I just said to myself, oh, you know what? Maybe poetry will help me get a gig this way. You never can tell. But it's been quite an interesting ride. The good thing with working from home now, it's or the times we are rather, is that you're able to work in different time zones, work, with different people across the globe, and you're still able to make an impact no matter where you are.
And how different do you think having now experienced both the creative scene is in Nigeria, where you come from, and in the UK, and what you've experienced so far? Do you think there's similarities in terms of approaches, or is one area lagging behind another, or what have you seen?
I think the main difference between the UK ad landscape and the Nigerian ad landscape is mostly a thing of the how, not the what. Because at the end of it, at the end we're all telling brand stories, we're all telling human stories. We're all trying, to just create something that will help push the business forward, whatever business that is. But we then go about it differently. Again, I'm Nigerian, so I'll always just fall back to Nigerian sayings. We have a saying that not one road leads to the market. So I find that in the UK, the road of choice, going on with that analogy, is maybe more tech, more digital, more, just going future focused. But in Nigeria, the road of choice, again, just working with what's available, because you've got to be realistic, haven't you? Is so more human interactions, more and direct approaches sometimes. But the thing is, there's merit in both.
Yeah.
You can't look at going so you can't be so tech focused that you forget just the little things, as human connections. But you also can't be so human connection focused that you forget that the world is evolving. So I think, again, going back to the hands washing each other, they can do well. We can do well to learn from both sides. And being here now as one who has a background coming from Nigeria, with our love for just storytelling, rich storytelling, and just going into the minute details of little things and how even a wink can mean 10 different things, and then having to it's because there are nuances, and I've seen instances of people or maybe one or two agencies here who try to do work for the African market, and they come with a mindset of so this is where the world is and this is how we should do it. But then you forget that you're talking to a place that's full of nuances, where the difference between acceptance, and this is a real example, can be whether someone picks up something with the right hand or the left hand. So there are those little things that can make a whole world of difference. So like I said, they can work together and they should work together.
Yeah, but I think it's so important, and I think the last few years have taught us all that these nuances exist, and it's really important to try and understand. And if you don't have the breadth of knowledge or the education or the same sort of lived experience, you need to get that support when you're doing work for different communities. I mean, I had a great conversation this week with there's an organisation in London called the Diversity Standards Collective, and they're great. So if you're doing a piece of work, that's going out in Nigeria, for example, but you're creating it from the UK, they help you tap into communities. They help you tap into people that can feedback and give you experience and give you feedback on that work to make sure that it's done in the best way. And so you understand what a wink means, or what I understand, And I think it's really great to hear as well. I'm interested to know, in terms of I always believe in the best creativity, comes from the diversity of minds, people, experiences, and thoughts. Do you think it now makes you a better creative, having lived in a few places and having experiences from different places? And what do you think that adds to a creative sort of repertoire or toolkit, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I won't use the phrase a better creative, because again, one, who's judging, two, by whose standards, but I think what it does make one is perhaps a more empathetic creative, because then you're able to understand exactly where someone is coming from, not just in terms of putting out work, but in terms of how it's received.
Yeah.
So it's, I'll give you an example. When a lot of African countries were put on the red list over the, Christmas holidays, it then meant a lot of people, because again, take Nigeria, for instance, we're very migratory. So during Christmas, we're all heading, back home. But it meant that, this particular Christmas, a lot of people couldn't go. Now, there was a missed opportunity, I'll say, for brands who could have looked for, a way to say to this demographic, we know that a lot of you would have been back home, but you can't. Why don't we help you create that sense of community here? So it's little things, like that, because then you understand, you're able to understand where people are coming from, and then you, as a brand, you know how to talk to them, because at the end of the day, we're all about hearts and minds, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you capture, the hearts, and it's little insights, like that do help. So I think, and it's the reason why a lot of people travel the world, isn't it? Because once you go out, you see different cultures,
everything.
you see everything, so you're not pigeonholed, by your own, little experience.
Yeah, the way you've been brought up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say a better creative. I'll just say one who's able to understand a lot more.
Yeah, I always feel like as soon as people become parents as well, it gives you another perspective as a creative as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's just the more experiences you can cram in your head, the more you can understand different people and different points of view. You're then able to communicate to different audiences and understand more nuance. I think that's probably what we're saying, isn't it?
It is.
So. In terms of, right, you're a creative director, and you're obviously a kind of more copy-led creative director. What would you sort of say the best traits a creative director, or the sort of skills a creative director needs in today's world, in today's sort of brand ecosystem, and what makes a great one?
Again, this is where that imposter syndrome comes in, because I ask myself, who on earth am I to tell people how to be great and all that?
Yes, you can. That's why you're here.
But I'll say the first thing you need to do is to shut up and listen. It's such an underrated skill. But what you need to do is get out of your own head, get out of your own, again, your own past successes, and then just listen to people, because then, that's how you're able to connect with them on a level that makes them believe that this person knows us. It's I look at a copywriter as something of a voyeur of experiences. You're just going around, you're watching, you're filing that in, because I'll say that the best copy isn't necessary, or the best ideas aren't necessarily born of how you manage to use words, but it's how you manage to use words in context.
Yeah.
So again, I'll give an example of one, arguably my favorite ad. I'll give two examples. My favorite ad coming out of Nigeria, and the one ad that, even before I spoke to my friend, I would say piqued my interest and set me on a course inevitably to copywriting. So the one in Nigeria was for Heineken, and all they just did was say chairman. But behind that word was a layer, of nuances, a layer of cultural insights. Because in Nigeria, if you have great respect for someone, if you put someone on a high pedestal, you always say, "Oh, that's my chairman." So when Heineken put that, or just had a bottle of Heineken on the billboard and then just had the word chairman, it was, and for the next few years, you would see, we saw brands trying to give appellations to their own products. This is the king. But it didn't quite hit the spot as that one. The one in the UK was for Skoda. So I'm watching TV. So one of the times I had visited, I'm sat there watching TV, and this ad comes up. And it was, the one where the security guy is apologizing that a vandal has put a Skoda sign on someone's car. So, and I couldn't understand it. So I asked the person, like, why would someone be upset that there's a Skoda, sign on his car? And the guy, like, no. Back in the day, Skodas were.
It was the worst. You would not want anyone to know you had a Skoda. Yeah.
But so just the ability to turn that on its head. But it was that thing of, if you know, you know. And it did connect, so once I then knew that, the ad made a lot more sense. So for me, it's that the idea
being able to laugh at yourself,
laugh at yourself. But even deeper than that, as an ad man, as a copywriter, get to know the context. Then the craft is a layer, on top of that. But craft without context is just a lot of beautiful words that don't make any sense, in my opinion.
Really nice way to put it. Really nice way. No, I really like that. So I understand you're working on a short film just now. Did I read that somewhere?
Yes. So, written a short film, and I have an amazing crew that we're working with to try and bring it to life. So please, when we put out, when we start either the funding campaign on whatever platform, please be sure to help us out there. But basically, it's a short film that is based on Nigerian mythology. Specifically Igbo mythology. So you're going to see appearances of gods and goddesses, but again, nothing too elaborate to make it hard to understand. Because what we want to do is to try and tell these stories about Igbo worldview for now. Igbo philosophies, Igbo also religious philosophies, but in a manner that is very accessible. And, so the characters are basically, the person who's down the street from you, but then you see that weaved into the narrative is these, religious thought and philosophy. So what it does then is to help people to better understand how we see the world and why we do or act in certain ways. Then you get to understand that, wait, hang on, because some of these figures and all that, they sort of like mirror other cultures as well. So it helps also break down, the walls of division, because then you can see, oh, this is how you guys think about this. Well, this is how we think about it as well. We just call them different names.
We're just saying different things, man. We're calling a spade. Someone's calling it something else. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing with this.
And how did that come about? Is it self-funded? Are you working with agency friends, or how's that?
Well, right now is self-funded, which is why we also want to start a funding campaign to see, hopefully people that want to see more African stories being told, can contribute to, bring it to life, so that's where we are right now.
Okay, and if anyone was interested in helping, supporting, where could they find you? Where's the best place to help support?
Like I said, we're looking at the best platform to start a campaign. So it's either going to be Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but I'll be sure to put stuff out there on socials, on my platform, so that people can then head over to whatever platform we decide to go with to just throw in what they can.
Yeah, great. And I'm sure you'll have that all updated on your website as well. So if anyone's listening, like this, keep checking out on the website as well. So, we've got quite a lot of young creatives, and I'm sure a lot of them were inspired by your story earlier on of how you got into the industry. What do you think would be sort of helpful for people listening just now that you wish you'd known back then when you were trying? Is there anything you could have done better? Is there anything you think would help them get a head start to get their first steps into the creative industry? Oh yeah,
that's an interesting question and a really good one. It always helps to go back to your younger self and say, oh, here's the hindsight.
Don't give yourself a row.
But I think the first thing to do is to just believe in yourself. It sounds so like such a mundane thing to say. But there are times, in the past, I've found myself trying to compromise because I'm thinking, well, I need to keep the lights on. I need to get things going, so let's just try this while, maybe this isn't the way. But I'll say if you believe that this is the industry you want to be in, then just keep going at it. But the second thing I'll say is keep knocking on those doors, Good, all well and good if the first door you knocks on, is open for you. But, this is real life. And most times it's never going to be the first or the 10th, but just keep at it. Keep wear people down. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no.
Yeah, I like that.
And then give them a year, go back. They'll say that after a while, someone's going to say, what, oh, for goodness sake, just come on. Let's have, and then, but the third thing is look for the other ways to the market. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is create experiences. So it might not always be as a copywriter, it might be as a spoken word poet, it might be as a filmmaker, it might be as as a critic. I don't know, but there's always going to be an opening somewhere. So never stop looking, never stop believing, and always, always, always disturb people. I know. I know it might not be the best thing to say in this climbs, but look, man, the worst they can say is no or block you.
Yeah, no, I think you've given so many good tips there that that you've got to keep going back, because you get no's, and sometimes it's not because it's a no that you're not right. It's just sometimes it's a no, not now, isn't it? Sometimes there's something else in that situation that means it's a no, but if you come back a month later or a year later, it's a yes. So yeah, you clearly get it, and it's clearly how you've made your way into this industry and are making a great success for yourself. In terms of your own success, you've worked on loads of great projects, and we listed off loads of great brands. And we actually work on Johnny Walker too, so we can be Johnny Walker friends. I'm interested. Has there been a high point in terms of any of the work that you've worked on? You keep talking about imposter syndrome, and I think it's about time you don't have it, because you've clearly deserved the position that you're in. So I'm interested. Is there a moment that you've gone, shit, I've arrived, I'm working on, or I'm doing this, or a project that's just made your heart sing?
Oh man, so I think the one project up until now that I'm super proud of has been what we did for AB InBev's Hero Beer in my previous agency, where we just went all out, diving into Nigerian histories, Nigerian culture, we brought, we made our history cool again. So we dove into, so there's this script called Nsibidi, which is an ideoglyph, God, English fails me, but anyway. But it's so if you think of the nearest thing to it would be like the Egyptian hieroglyphics, but these ones were based on ideas rather than just they weren't just pictograms. So what that means is it doesn't matter whether I'm Nigerian and you're Scottish and someone else is Chinese, as long as we understand the ideas behind each character, we would be able to communicate, in writing, even if we don't do so, in speaking. Yeah, and this was, in the southeastern part of Nigeria, which coincidentally is a place where Hero Beer has its biggest market. So what we did was, look at our past, look at our present, and we then drew a continuous line that look, the past has never really gone away. It's just there waiting to be rediscovered, but it also influences the future and the present. And I think it was also timing, because that was about the time Black Panther came out. And if you notice some of the writings, in the throne room and, the Wakanda writings were inspired. Some of them were inspired by Nsibidi.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So again, these are some of the contributions that we've made on the world stage that no one really talks about. So what we then did was to take that part of our history and, celebrate it, have this beer celebrated. And it blew up, it became such a huge phenomenon. People were writing their names in CBD. People were, having tattoos. I have a couple of tattoos in CBD as well, but, it became such a movement. People started asking, what is my name? How can I write my name? How can I show my family tree in this? And, so I'm proud of the fact that we're able to start a movement of people just looking back and saying, I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of who we are, as a people. And I mean, the icing on the cake was then we had competition also change some part of their communication plan. So basically we changed communication in the Nigerian beer market, and I always say to anyone, who I worked with on that campaign, the copywriters, the art directors, the digital folk, I don't care what anyone says to you. You guys created something, that would stay, that's put your names in the books of, Nigerian campaigns, so be proud of that and always hold your heads high.
No, fantastic. Yeah, that's definitely one to be proud of. It's not, I don't think it's actually a beer that we get here in the UK. I've not seen it. Have you seen it in the UK?
No. So again, it's just based in Nigeria.
Just
but what you would have, no. So I have seen, which is interesting. I have seen it in the UK, but that would be in, Nigerian restaurants, or Nigerian shops where people just, I want a taste of home, so they will bring, so.
Well, you clearly got good vision, and you're able to kind of craft or find an insight and turn it into something, a fantastic idea like that. Obviously as a creative director, your job is to lead a team or to lead lead projects and inspire. What do you think the sort of best attributes are for a leader in your type of position? How do you get the best out of creative people when that brand comes to you? We need to do something, we don't know what we're going to do. Where do you start, and how do you get the best of people?
I think your job as a leader, especially in the creative space, is to remember that your job is not to, how do I put this? Your job is not necessarily to come up with ideas. Your job is to inspire people. So if you're so focused on the work at the expense of the people, yes, you might get the jobs come out, but you start ebbing away at people's just creative expressions. Yeah. So what I've always done as a creative director is to first of all make sure that the guys, I work with, who work with me, look forward to coming to work the next day. Yeah. Because when they can look forward to coming to work the next day, then you that's half of your problem. Because then people are willing to throw in all they have, to just make sure that this project comes to life, because already they enjoy working, at that location. So for me, it's look at the people and good work will follow. Look after your people, good work will follow.
That's great. And I was reading an article about you, or an interview somewhere, and I think you'd sort of mentioned that, you don't believe in clients with sort of internal creative teams as such, and it's the partnership between agency and clients and working together. And I'm very much in agreement of that kind of partnership. But I was watching a film or a YouTube talk last night from I think it was the creative director of Oatly, and obviously Oatly in the UK, you'll be very aware that they're everywhere just now, and as a brand globally, they've done amazingly. And I hadn't been quite aware that they had recruited creatives into their company. So rather than working with agencies, his whole chat was that, let's build creatives into the middle of the company itself, right? So rather than someone in the marketing director in the company going, okay, we've got a business opportunity or challenge, we now need to create a brief, we then brief an agency, someone in the agency then briefs a team in the agency, and so forth. They basically say, well, see, when we're having those business discussions, we've just got creatives in the room. So the creatives don't actually need to create a brief. They just hear the problems and they just straight away start executing. And I was like, wow, that's there's something quite interesting. I'm interested to know where your head's at, and also understanding that if you hadn't heard that, because I hadn't been aware of that.
Yeah, I think my views sort of like, again, seems to like evolve over time. The more you go on this journey, and then the more you look at different models. Right now, it's sort of like the model with Oliver to have in-house teams for their clients. So that they're embedded in the client's office. But I'll even take you back to what I did, in the agency in Nigeria, where going to the agency, obviously you have the creative department, you have the client service or brand management department, you have all other departments, and every morning it's almost like, right, guys, swords on this side, shields on that side, let's go at it. The age-old agency rivalry was, always there, and so it became sort of like, a fun thing to do. Oh, we're going to shoot them today, but while it was fun in just upholding it was fine rather in upholding an age-old structure or tradition in agencies. What it didn't do was to help us to evolve as a team. So the argument I put forward, to the agency, wider agency leadership, and which thankfully was bought, was to say, let's collapse everyone. So rather than build departments, we build teams. So you have brand manager, digital strategy, creative, everyone, on one team, all listening in on the client's briefing, all then sitting back and brainstorming, so that by the time you leave a meeting, all every other person is doing is just plugging in their parts. Everyone knows where we are on the table, so no one is saying, right, I'm waiting for strategy or, to come up with, this strategy, then I can do this and then pass on. No,
everyone's coming up together.
Everyone is coming up together, so what it then did was collapse the time, in which we work. And I think there's a need, a greater need for that, for more interaction. And I've always argued that even for the creative, for the client side, I would want to see more creative people as brand managers.
Yeah.
Not for the fact that I think creative people are more intelligent. No.
Well, we definitely are. We definitely are.
I hope you bring on a brand manager next.
I know, exactly.
But for the fact that there's also that duality of view. I see what you're trying to do as a business, but I also understand the target audience and how I can then translate this business need to a communication platform, and then have vice versa, have people in the client on the client side get embedded in the agency so that they also understand, well, okay, right, maybe this feedback is coming in fast and furious. Maybe I need to simplify my knowledge and my questions or my ask. So I believe that cross-functional roles will help us do a lot more in achieving our goals. Business goals, creative goals. And hopefully at the end of the day, everyone is happy. Again, of course, that's not always going to happen. That everyone is happy at all times. But I think it helps further the creative agenda, from both sides better.
Yeah, it's back to what we said earlier. It's that diversity of thought, of different specialisms and different viewpoints make a better creative idea, don't they?
Definitely,
ultimately.
Yeah.
And lastly, I'm conscious of time. I'm sure you've got a busy day ahead of you, or you've got two little munchkins in the house that are needing your attention shortly soon, or back from school at some point soon anyway. Branding in today's world, everyone, I'm sure, and we always say this, has kind of a different thought of what a brand is in today's world. And you're dealing with brands all the time, day in, day out. And I'm just interested, because you've got so many great sayings on this podcast. I'm going to be pulling them all out and trying to remember them all. I'm just interested, do you have a kind of definition that if you were to describe what a brand is to your gran, right? Someone's gran, how would you describe that in its simplest element?
I'll say
it's not an easy one, so I'll give you some thinking time.
Yeah.
I'll help you. I'll give you a couple of prompters on, like Richard Branson, for example. He talks about brand as your reputation. Marty Neumeier, that came on the show before, who literally wrote the book on branding, he said it's not what we say it is, it's what they say it is about us. Debbie Millman, if I can remember correctly, she said brands. I can't remember. Build consensus around meaning. So I'm just interested if you had your own viewpoint of what brands are becoming, what they're evolving, or what, when ultimately, we're doing all this creative work,
I think I'll say a brand is what we agree it is. And when I say we, is not the brand who's telling you this is what I am, because again, I can come out and say, oh, I'm great. And then you think, oh, no, you're shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the show.
You can say shit if you like. shit.
Yeah, there we are. But basically, a brand is what we agree it is. So if my messaging is coming from this side and then you receive and say, yes, actually, these guys make me, have more, understanding of this or help me do this better, then that is what it is. Otherwise, then we're just talking over each other, and then the brand on its own is spending lots of money to say, oh, look at me and this. And then the other guy is like, nah, man, screw these guys. I'm going with the next one.
I love it. You've nailed it. You can stop. That's your career. Your highlight there. Brand is what we agree it is. That is a beautiful quote. And it feels like a perfect spot for us to finish up today. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I just want to make you laugh more because you've got the most infectious laugh.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to record that and put it on loop when I'm feeling down. I'm going to listen to your laugh and cheer myself up. You've been an absolute... Oh, sorry.
I should bottle my laughter and sell it as an NFT, I think.
That's exactly what you're going to do. That's
so that I understand what that is.
Well, listen to our last episode. We had Betty on our last episode. But stranger things have happened. I reckon you probably could NFT your laugh and probably do pretty well out of it. So, no, you've been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been really inspiring to hear, and I'm sure our listeners will really love it. And thank you, everyone, for listening.